Please bow your heads. Almighty and most gracious Father, we thank you, God, for tonight. We thank you that we're here gathered to hear our sister Carrie Ann tell us her story. We thank you that we are here, and because of you, we are here. Lord, as we celebrate the month of the disabled and we are about to come to a climax, God, it is only you that would have brought us through these different events, dear Lord, and we ask you for your guidance, dear Lord. As we celebrate tonight to hear Carrie Ann's story, dear Lord, whatever she may say about her childhood, her present time, and her future, Lord, you have her in the palm of your hand. Rest on her at this time. Bless each and every one of us that is here. Bless the leaders of this department, the heads of the ministry, from the minister back down to the janitor, Lord. You bless them and keep them in your care in your own special way. Lord, we leave these tonight's events within your hand. You have total control. In Jesus' name.
You may be seated. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my immense pleasure and privilege to be your master of ceremonies this afternoon as we continue to celebrate the abilities, the determination, and the resilience within the community of persons with disabilities. As this is our third edition of our public lecture series, where we get to celebrate one of the distinguished members of our community to share their respective life story. This is a production of the Ministry of People Empowerment, Elder Affairs, and the National Disabilities Unit, the executing agency of the ministry. At this time, I wish to invite Mr. John Hollingsworth, Director of the National Disabilities Unit, to officially welcome you to this evening presentation. Director Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Honorable Kurt Humphrey, Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, Mr. Edmund Hinkson, SC MP, Senator Andrea Boyce, Senator Andre Worrell, the Most Honorable Carrie Ann Eiffel, FB, staff of the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, as well of the National Disabilities Unit, staff of the Media Resource Department, members of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, members of the community of persons with disabilities, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. As you would have heard from the Master of Ceremonies, we are in the climax, basically, of the month of the disabled, which is celebrated this year under the theme, One Community, United in Action for an Inclusive and Sustainable Future. This event tonight is the third in the series of the This Is My Story public lectures by the National Disabilities Unit, and these would have started back in 2023. And I would like to say that, in my opinion, and I'm sure some of you will share it with me, they have been pretty successful over the years, and we don't doubt that tonight will be a continuation of that success. It is one of our signature events of the many events that we would have planned and executed for this particular month. Every year we have a different patron, and this year our patron is Mr. Edmund Hinkson, who is a well-known advocate for persons with disabilities and a long-standing member of Parliament for St. James North. We are evolving from greater audiences every year, And it's still early tonight, and just now you see the room fully packed. In our previous iterations of this particular episode, we would have had some touching stories relayed by our previous presenters, and certain things come to mind from those presentations, especially for the first one from Ms. Janelle Oldham, who, what strikes me, or what comes to mind from her presentation, was that when she was pregnant and was delivering her baby, the nurse asked her, who is going to take care of this baby? The nurse basically thought more about Janelle's disability than Janelle as a person. Last year, Senator Boyce would have relayed his story as well, and what comes to mind is his educational experience that he referred. The teachers thought that he didn't belong to mainstream school, and that some teachers opined that he could not take the common entrance exam. He indicated then that his parents were his strongest advocates, and that enabled him to take the common entrance exam, and secondary school proved to be a rewarding experience for him. So these are some of the stories. These are what stand up for me. I'm sure that for those of you who would have been here before would have other memories, or the same memories as I do, or the same memories plus others for those two presentations. Tonight, the presenter, the Most Honorable Carrie-Ann Eiffel, will tell her story. The whole of Barbados knows the Honorable Carrie-Ann Eiffel, and she is not only a Barbadian person, but she's from the Caribbean as well. She's a Caribbean celebrity, let me put it that way. And beyond, she has been awarded numerous accolades throughout her career, and I'm sure that they are not yet finished. The most recent, I think, would have been the conferring of the Freedom of Barbados Award. And then there was the Anthony Sabda Award. I'm speaking from my head, can't remember, but some Anthony Sabda. Yes, I remember that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very comprehensive program in store for you tonight, and I'm sure that you will enjoy it. There will be, of course, as in previous discussions, an interactive session. This will give you an opportunity to ask Carrie-Ann some questions about her experiences and the story that she would have shared with you. And incidentally, tonight, Carrie-Ann, who has also become an author, will also be launching her book. There would also be a presentation of a couple of those books. Some of you can purchase some of these books as well and have them signed by our distinguished author. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to enjoy the evening's presentation, and I hope that you gather some more inspiring stories from what is on offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Hollingsworth. Throughout this evening's presentation, you may hear certain phrases as disabilities are not inabilities. Disabilities are not handicaps. They are mere challenges that we, the persons with disabilities, would overcome. C.J. Young was quoted as saying, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Our celebrant this evening is fitting testimony to that. At this time, I wish to invite the Honorable Edmund Hinkson, Senior Counsel, Member of Parliament for St. James North, to deliver some opening remarks. Mr. Hinkson.
The Honorable Kurt Humphrey, Member of Parliament, my good friend and colleague, Most Honorable Carrie-Ann, and all the stakeholders here in the cause of persons with disabilities, honorable senators and distinguished guests. It is my honor to be patron of this event. When I was asked, I unhesitedly agreed, and I mean, I'm privileged to be among those who can be called friends of Carrie-Ann. Carrie Ann is easily one of the most amazing people that you would ever meet in a lifetime. And she's the epitome of what persons with disabilities can achieve given the opportunity. Of course, the main issues relating to persons with disabilities are education, employment, health, and accessibility. And speaking on two of them, employment and education, we're in the midst, of course, of transforming our educational policies, which are, in a way, totally outdated, having mainly been formulated in the immediate post-World War era, post-World War II, when we were still a colony by our colonial ruler at the time. And the United Kingdom has forgone the principles in education that we still operate under. We need to transform special needs education, and we're in the midst of doing that. And of course, the Prime Minister has recognized that in the creation of a Ministry of Educational Transformation. In terms of employment, of course, as Kurt recently said, you know, we toyed strenuously with the idea of putting in quotas and numbers, persons to be employed within private sector organizations, quotas within the government, but ultimately decided to take it out of the legislation which was passed 2 months ago in Parliament, because we're not really of the culture where we seek to enforce persons to do something. We're a more liberal society than that. We hope and trust that those with the power of employment in their hands, both in private and public sector, will employ more persons with disabilities who are qualified and skilled and have the merit for the job. And I know that the Ministry of People's Empowerment will be having ongoing discussions both with government and with private sector to increase the number of people with disabilities who are employed, and so that persons with disabilities, the unemployment rate, which is at 90-odd% now, will fall drastically. As Curtis said, the legislation is reviewable in 3 years' time. So I'm sure that Parliament at that time and Cabinet will look to see where that is at. Because Carrie Ann is, as I said, the epitome of an example of an individual who, although having a disability, and, you know, sight is what, 80% of your senses, has achieved total success in her personal life and contributed extremely significantly and profoundly to national development, not only national development, but development at the Caribbean and indeed at the global level. In terms of education, she had the opportunity to go to what is certainly one of the best schools in Barbados, Commermere. Certainly, as a non-Commermerian, although some people call me an honorary Commermerian because my mother taught there for 17 years. Certainly, you have to concede that Commermere has the best social network among schools in Barbados. And therefore, Carrie Ann, given that opportunity to go to that school, was brought into a school that has that social cohesion, both during school years and after. Helped her, of course, become, the first blind graduate at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill, and first blind president to the Senate, and all the other accolades she achieved. So education for persons with disabilities is so important, enhancing their education so that persons with disabilities, children with disabilities, can have the best opportunity that they can have to be the best that they can be in terms of their skills, talent. And then, of course, employment. Having got that education, we have to find a way to employ more persons with disabilities. And people who are employers have to understand that our society has to grow, and the only way it can grow is by persons with disabilities coming in the mainstream in terms of employment, because a society is only as strong as its weakest link. And we look forward, all of us, with interest to what is an incredible story of Carrie Ann. And as I said, she and I go far back, 35 years I count, in the cause of serving persons with disabilities. And some people find it strange. I mean, when Carrie Ann was in one of her stints as president of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, I served as a director on that council, and people used to come to me and say, wait, how are you and Carrie Ann working together? Of course, we were at the time both in Parliament on different sides of the political fence. But I would tell them it is because of that same reason that obviously the cause of persons with disabilities is now being served in Parliament on both sides of the political fence at the highest level. And when on, I think, November the 27th, 2023, she called and told me she was being elevated to the most honorable Freedom of Barbados Award, which extremely well deserved. Carrie Ann, I said, Carrie Ann, I can't remember 3 times that we've discussed party politics. We would never let that come between us in terms of serving our cause. And I was honored to be one of those to write an application for her to be recipient, successful as it was, of the Anthony Sabger Award last year. So just like all of y'all, look forward to hearing the story of one of the most incredible people you will ever meet on this earth. I thank you, Master of Ceremonies.
Thank you, Mr. Hinkson. Throughout this evening, you will hear me drop or share some quotes with you. And they are shared to encourage you to create that enabling environment for persons with disability to grow and thrive in this country, just like you and I. I will quote one by Wayne Dyer. With everything that has happened to you, you can either feel sorry for yourself or treat what has happened to you as a gift. Everything is either an opportunity to grow or an obstacle to keep you from growing. You get to choose. Choose wisely. At this time, I wish to invite the Honorable Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, Mr. Kurt Humphrey, to deliver the feature address. Minister Humphrey.
Good night, everyone. I promise you there is no feature address. And my only role here probably is to bring us back into being with the time. But I would not want to come here and not say a few good words about my good friend as well. And first of all, let me acknowledge Eddie, my good friend, Mr. Hinkson, MP, Senator Worrell, and Senator Boyce, PS, Wiltshire, all former PS, Ms. Welch. It's so good to see you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all. I must tell you that there are some days where, regardless of the good work I think this ministry has done, where I feel extremely sad and heavy. Today is one of those days for another reason. You all would have heard the news of the horrible, tragic situation with passing of that decent young boy unnecessarily. And I like to think that hope springs eternal, but today was really a very difficult day for me, to be honest. And having a conversation with his father, one of the most difficult things I've done since I became a minister. So as I was home this evening, I must say, Carrie Ann, the only reason I made it here is because of you, because I really was not in the spirit for this. Because even though I think hope springs eternal, I just don't see the sense today, truthfully, from my heart. But I also know that regardless of the circumstances of the day, that there are people who are doing amazing things in this country. And I had to remind myself that even though it is difficult, we must not let the activities of a small few stain and taint the progress, the good work, the achievements of the many, and the outstanding works of persons for whom life has been difficult but have been able to make the most of that life. A person such as Carrie Ann, I feel, is the most honorable. And so I am here, Carrie, to support you entirely and to hear your story. And I feel that stories such as yours must be shared so that persons understand that even in the most difficult of circumstances, life offers opportunity. And that we must not allow any person or the circumstances of our birth to define who we are as people, nor should we use it to make excuses for people who choose to engage in activities that bring harm and injury to others. I know that when your story is told, as was the case when I listened to Janille's story, as was the case when I listened to Andwele's story, that there must be times when it would have been easier to give up than to go on. Even on a day such as today, where it feels much easier to lay in bed and just ask myself, why? So this story, I think, Carrie, your story will be an inspiration for this room, for all of us who are involved in this work, and for this nation. And that indeed it is probably the most timely story that we can tell on a day such as today is. And I hope that we use this story, even though I'm sure not all of it is going to be joyful, to help us uplift a country that really needs to be, at this moment, uplifted. I also feel that your story is not over. In fact, I know that it is not, and that very soon we will be able to share with Barbados, I think, greatest things for Senator Carrie Ann, well, not Senator, the most honorable Carrie Ann, I feel. And that Carrie will go on to serve this country and this region, and indeed, the world with distinction. Whenever we go to international conferences, it's Carrie who's introducing me to people, or people want me to introduce them to her. I am just a conduit. Nonetheless, it is my privilege so to do. And Eddie would have hinted at all the work we've done. I feel the ministry, PS about this time. You would be proud because we finished the child protection legislation, we finished the disability legislation, we finished the elderly legislation, and we amalgamated the social services, all in 2.5 years. And we've been working on those things for a long time. So I feel like the ministry has done a lot of very good work. I say all the time that the work of which I am most proud is the work in relation to persons with disabilities. The reality is, the tragedy is, and I will close with this, yesterday, the Nation, or CBC carried a clip of me speaking, where, same thing that Minister Hinkson was just speaking on, employment. And the idea that we really have to do more to employ persons with disabilities. And the comments remind me that we are not in a position to even begin to boast of progress. Because clearly from the comments, people do not understand the challenges facing persons with disabilities. That the vast majority of persons with disabilities are unemployed, between 90 and 95% in Barbados. And to hear people say, well, I unemployed too, I can't get a job too, and so on, is like comparing chalk and cheese. We have to do more. I think we have to really buckle down this year and communicate this message effectively. And that the best way so to do would be to have persons with disabilities tell their own story. And essentially the power of story to create movement and to create social change is the reason that we are doing this. It's not just to tell a story as the impetus for change. And so with that, I just want to congratulate you, the most honorable Carrie Ann Eiffel. I thank you for choosing to deliver your story and giving it to us as a gift. I hope that we receive this story with grace, and that we continue to spread the good word. Good night. May the good Lord bless all of you all, and I look forward to hearing this story. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I certainly hope that you would have heard that clarion call for you to show kindness to any person with disabilities that you may have any form of interaction with. And that would facilitate the building or the creation of an enabling and supporting environment for them to thrive. At this time, I wish to introduce Mrs. Rosanna Tudor to introduce our distinguished celebrant, Mrs. Tudor.
Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, allow me to acknowledge some exceptional individuals who have and continue to make a real difference. Imagine a world where every person with a disability, regardless of ability, is given the tools to thrive. Thanks to the dedication of the Honorable Kirk Humphrey, who tirelessly advocates for this inclusive world, and Edmund Hinkson, whose dedication to ensuring the rights of all persons with disabilities are assured. But allow me as well, I would also like to acknowledge, in spirit, many committed and resilient advocates I've worked with. Some have passed on, and some who are still here, breaking barriers, like Rosalind Hurley, Maria Holder Small, Patricia Patmore Blackman, Julie Wickham, Carol Holloway, Christopher Gilks, Senator Andrea Boyce, Janelle Odell, and others present here and in my heart. Every one of you came to hear or contributed in some way to Carrie Ann's story. That makes you all special. This evening, it is my absolute privilege to introduce my friend, colleague, former senator, and the most honorable Carrie Ann Eiffel, who, when anyone is asked to introduce her, they would say she needs no introduction. So, I've been asked to introduce someone I have known for almost 3 decades who needs no introduction. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the most honorable Carrie Ann Eiffel. No, not so fast, not so fast. I have a couple minutes left. So, for almost 25 years, I have had the honor of knowing Carrie Ann. And from the very first moment we met, there was one thing I had no choice but to accept: her determination. You thought I was going to say disability. But if you've ever met Carrie Ann, you would know that her presence commands respect, not because of any challenges she faces, but because of the sheer force of will with which she approaches every task, every goal, and every dream. When Carrie Ann started working at the council as a research officer, her first real job, our interactions quickly became a tradition. Many mornings on entering the office, I would ask her, "Why aren't you working?" And with a mischievous smile, she would reply, "I didn't see you coming." Then, on any given day, she would critique or compliment my clothing to the point where I secretly started peeping at her around the corner, peeping over her shoulder, and generally felt like a peeping Tom. I still can't accept how she knew I had on a blue dress that day. Carrie, I remember that. I still don't know how. That was Carrie Ann. Sharp-witted, bold, and always ready to challenge expectations. This attitude didn't just shape the work culture at the council. It helped create an environment that myself, Emily, Roseanne, Galen, Rupert, and Jemison, we recognize as the perfect foundation for developing our platform, a platform that led to years of advocacy for an inclusive Barbados, a platform that is reaping the successes we are seeing today. Carrie Ann's determination was unmatched. whether it was quite literally getting down on her knees to resuscitate donated computers that felt like they could barely hold a key, or boldly seizing every opportunity to push our goals for inclusion further. She embodied resilience, but more than that, she recognized that these opportunities weren't just about the council's vision. They were also about her own personal and professional growth, which evolved over the years into a legacy of firsts that I'm sure she will share with you tonight. I have seen many sides of Carrie Ann, having interacted with her almost every week for 3 decades. I feel as though I know every chapter of her story, from the young girl with the afro who stepped into the council ready to prove herself, to the woman who left us 10 years later wearing sister locks and carrying the title of the first blind senator of Barbados. Carrie Ann's journey has been one of relentless ambition and undeniable impact. And of course, how could I forget Carrie? How could I forget Pamela and Paula, her 2 bosom buddies? Should I leave out this part? No. Her 2 bosom buddies who know they're important. They provided comfort to us girls at the council when we needed it most. That was Carrie Ann, always willing to share, to support, and to uplift those around her. I can admit to being the one who took the most advantage of those 2 companions. And Lord, I miss them. As we sit in anticipation to hear her story, I leave you with this. Carrie Ann's success was propelled by an enabling environment, yes. But equally important is the fact that she, in turn, became an outstanding role model, one whose influence continues to shape the lives of persons with disabilities to this day. It is with great pride and admiration that I now invite the Most Honorable Carrie Ann Eiffel to share her story with us. Senator Carrie Ann Eiffel. Thank you.
He's not my husband, just a cousin. Honorable Kirk Humphrey, Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. Thank you. Okay. People tell me I got a big mouth, so I'm sure everybody could hear me. Anyway, let's do that again. Honorable Kirk Humphrey, Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. Mr. Edmund Hinkson, Senators Boyce and Worrell. President of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, Patricia Padmore Blackman. Director of the National Disabilities Unit. Family, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Y'all should know me better than that. So do that again. Good evening. Okay, now it sounds like I'm not talking to myself. Can I tell you a secret? Last year, as Senator Boyce delivered his outstanding lecture, he was good, wasn't he? Yes. The person that delivered the lecture the year before, who was also exceptional, said, I hope you know you gotta do this next year. To which I said, I hope you know you're wrong. I suppose she was right. But it is indeed a privilege and an honor to be here this evening to tell you my story. As I stand on this stage today, I'm reminded that when the hall opened, did you know that one of the first activities was a very special arts concert put on by persons with disabilities from Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago? I had the honor to be one of the performers. I don't want to hear the recording now because that's a whole other story. But why do I start there? Because my very good friend, JP, you here? You're here? Okay, very good. She sang one of the most memorable songs of any time. A song that personifies, exemplifies, and embodies my life. Give me one moment in time when I'm more than I thought I could be. When all of my dreams are just a heartbeat away. But this line is the one that I embody. And the answers, the choices, the differences are all up to me. So join me as I take you on the journey of my story. I hope I don't bore you. I contemplated delivering one of those speeches that usually are associated with a little less joy. I was going to give you the obituary speech. You know, the one where she was born on such a day and she did this at such a time. And I fell asleep while I was telling myself that once. That ain't gonna work. So then I started reflecting. What is my story? Did it start on the day when I was 6 years old? Okay, I'm not telling you when that was. But the day when the Government Information Service showed up at the school for the blind and deaf, deaf and blind, and took photographs of children to be placed on the stamps for the Year of the Disabled. Did my story start then? As I sat with my Perkins Braille and wrote some words with a smile on my face, and being me, thought too much, I smiled at the photographer and I said, "A star is born." Did it start then? Or did it start with other things? And then I realized my story didn't start with any one activity or action. It started with a firm foundation. And so this evening, ladies and gentlemen, friends, I am going to share with you the pillars that give me the strength to be the person that I am. I'm no hero. I'm no extraordinary person. I am the embodiment of all of you, of all the things that you pour into my life, of all the pillars that make me who I am. And so, this is my story. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. No, I'm not going for Codrington College, but thanks. I love you, Lord, for your mercies never fail me. Why do I sing? I sing because my faith in God is a quiet thing for me. I'm not demonstrative about it. But every day of my life, in so many ways, and at so many times, the presence of God is there. My steps are ordered by God. He directs my path in all things. I ever told you that I hate faith healing services? I do. And many persons with disabilities will tell you they don't like them. Some people do, others don't. I'm one of the ones that don't. I've been taken to so many faith healing services, and some would think that I would say that they failed, but they didn't. Do you know why they didn't fail? Because God does not fix what is not broken. He does not heal what is healthy. He uses his children, his tools, to exemplify the power, the presence of God. If my story, if my life is a testimony to anything, it is the never failing presence of God, and that he does not make mistakes. God was not asleep when at 4 years old my vision started doing odd things, and I started wearing glasses that were thicker than the average Coke bottle. God did not make a mistake when at 5 years old I sat in the first row at the Erdeston Model Mixed School, and I could not read the words on the board. God was not sleeping. He did not make any mistakes. He did not make a mistake when at 5 years old I spent 3 weeks in the hospital with the doctors fighting to save what vision I had left, with my grandmother indulging my love of macaroni pie and hatred of the hospital food. She used to bake a little macaroni pie every day and bring for me. Still can't eat cream of wheat. Still don't like cold tea. And like a little too much of macaroni pie. God was not asleep when at 5 years old I was subjected to one of the most horrific experiences of my life, a spinal tap. Do you know what a spinal tap is like? Good. For those of you who don't, at 5 years old, I was given a potion of some sort to drink, which paralyzed me for 2 days because you had to be awake during the procedure. And me being me, supposed to lay down and keep quiet, the only part of my body I could move was my neck. And what did I do? Turn my head and peep over my shoulder to see what the doctor was doing. Saw the biggest needle of my life going into my back. I went home from the hospital, and I was so happy, because I got to play with my favorite thing again, my Lego. They took away all my pretty colored Legos. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital with just black and white Lego. I was so happy to be home. My mother was ecstatic. My grandmother was thrilled. And I woke up blind the next day. And I've never seen a thing since. But do I blame Lego? No. I accept that that was God's master plan, because my life is a tapestry of many things. And the biggest part is His guidance. So, what are the other pillars of my life? Yesterday, I participated in, losing count now, but I can tell you the second of a family member's funeral, second funeral for the year. It was a beautiful funeral of my cousin, the late Professor Emeritus Pedro Welch. During the delivery of his eulogy, his siblings spoke glowingly of him. But the one thing I took away was a pencil. A pencil. Not a real pencil, but this slogan, which they found on a pencil in his house. The love of a family is life's greatest blessing. I have been multiply blessed. I come from a traditional, huge Bajan family on both sides. But let me share with you my mother. Many people don't know my mother personally. Many people confuse the lovely lady sitting at the back, my Aunt Cheryl, and they think she's my mother because they see her so often. Because my mother does not live here, she lives in New York. That was a very painful thing for her to leave and go to New York. But you Bajans know that the cornerstone of our existence is the extended family system, is it not so? You know, the grannies and the aunties and the uncles and the cousins. The other day, my mother asked me if I invited my cousin to the event. I said, Mommy, you know they got over 200 of them. Which one you mean? I said, but to cover it, I made sure and send it to the family chats so them could figure out who coming. Can't blame me. My mother is, beyond a shadow of the doubt, my biggest supporter, my noisiest cheerleader, even when I don't want one, my most fearless defender, when there's nothing to defend. If somebody look at me crossways, my mother ready to lick them down. A true Bajan fashion. When I visit her in New York, she insists that I use my cane. No, not because she is this big on the independence thing and all of that, but so that I can hit anybody that get too close. Yes, my mother encourages me to violence. But my mother gave me many blessings. You like the dress? Gorgeous, isn't it? My fashion sense was developed by my mother. Almost every gown, every dress, stiletto, even these bangles were gifts from my mother. Unfortunately, her sister, my honorary second mother slash aunt, slash dance teacher, slash cooking instructor, slash ... My mother would send them, and my aunt would decide when I shouldn't wear them anymore. Like the dress I put on this morning to wear to work. My aunt said, "Yeah, that's a short out looking right. I think it's time for that to retire." But in all seriousness, one of the biggest gifts my mother gave me was this. My mother taught me that in life, we can all do many things. Let's say 100 things. She taught me that when you have a disability, there are some you will no longer be able to do, like watch the sunset, which was one of my favorite pastimes, or see flowers, or look at the guys and think how cute. One of my favorite pastimes, gotta tell you. Or any of those things. But my mother taught me that there may be only 10 out of the 100 you could no longer do. So you could waste your life focusing on those 10 things that you could no longer or would never be able to do. Or you could take the lifetime of energy and talents that God gave you and concentrate on the 90. So I choose to focus on the 90 things I can't do. And for the other 10, I'll tell you how I get through with those. I have an amazing family. I do. From the young man that is my chef, my chauffeur, my critic, my fashion director on some occasions, the demeanor of my moods. He's one of the few people that he sits and he watches and he learns and he understands. He's one of my 200 plus cousins. Or there are the other cousins, you know, the ones that one day caught me eating lunch with a young fella. One of them spotted us having lunch, and he had to run back and tell the other one, who made it his business to come down and give the poor boy the evil eye. Note, no ring on finger. Wonder whose fault that was. My family is always there for me. Someone want to ask me if before I joined the Senate, if the Barkers used to pay me any attention. Because the late day Maisie Barker Welch, if she stood on a stage and spotted me, before she got on with what she was there to do, oh, there's my cousin. Unfortunately, she used to look around and see another cousin too, so then she used to go down the road with every cousin. And then her daughter, former permanent secretary, when she delivered speeches, if she looked out in the audience and saw me, she too did it. So someone asked me, they used to pay you any money before? I said, you must be kidding. My family supports me, loves me, encourages me, teases me, defends me, assaults me, drive off her, oh, wait, sorry. But this is not the same for all persons with disabilities. Over the years, I've heard of persons, families, not wanting to touch the plate they touch because they might catch it. Or the families that keep she house up, nobody ain't to know. My family has never been ashamed of me. My family has never, on either side, my families have never not acknowledged my presence. Do you know what it is like to be walking through Massey and have handsome young men running up to you and say, Auntie Carrie-Ann, Cousin Carrie-Ann, this is cousin so and such. 2 weeks ago, I was walking through Sky Mall. Just peacefully walking through Sky Mall, you know, looking for something to eat. And I was chased by a young woman, another one of my cousins. The love of a family is one of life's greatest blessings, and I have been blessed, multiply blessed. I want to publicly say I love each and every one of you. I should hope so. But then there's the family that you choose. You know, your friends. I have another big blessing in my life, and that is my friends. The qualities of true friendship is to understand and to be understood. So let me take you back to a Tuesday morning in a September of 1987. Before I say that, I have to say this. I, Carrie Ann Eiffel, am a proud and unrepentant Combomerian. And I will be until the day I die. Why? Because on that Tuesday morning, as I stood in the hall with nearly 1,000 people, a few known to me, I joined in the singing of one of the few hymns I knew by heart, Morning Has Broken. That hymn signified a lot of things. It was the dawning of a new day in Barbados, for I was the first totally blind student to be embraced in mainstream education. Going to Combomere was not an accident. Remember, God does not make what? He does not make mistakes. But this one was slightly different. This is where I tell you about my other mother, a friend, the late Mona Corbin Mears. This is where I go back to come forward again. Mona Corbin Mears was one of the most exotic, interesting people I ever met. She also had the biggest backside I ever saw in my life. But who was she? She was my teacher at the school for the deaf and blind. You know that determination that Rosanna spoke about? That was Mona's doing. Mona did not see disabilities in her children, in her students. Mona saw abilities. It was because of her that I fell in love with cooking. At 6 years old, she put me on a box to stand up and taught me to cook mac and cheese. Cheryl took over 7 years later, but that's where it started. Mona was 8 months pregnant, but she walked the length and breadth of Barbados, telling anybody who she met that she thought could make a difference, that this child deserved an opportunity for a secondary school education. Mona sat up and brailled books with a Perkins brailler. Any of you ever use a typewriter? Imagine one of those, and you have to type every letter of a book. That's what Mona did. She tried to get me into a secondary school, and I was so thrilled, when I was told I was accepted to Ellerslie. Why was I so pleased? Because my cousin, who was like my sister, because we grew up together, had gone into Ellerslie, and I would no longer be the odd one out at home. I'd be just like her. I'd get to wear a different uniform. A uniform that when people saw me, They wouldn't say what school that is. But a uniform that would define me as something other than one of them people they saw. I actually had somebody ask me once, what uniform that is? And I said, it's school for the deaf and blind. Wait, you deaf? But you would note that I said that I'm a proud and unrepentant Columbarian. I didn't go to Ellerslie. Because just as I was being prepared, made ready by Mona, who commandeered, that's the nicest way to put it, the textbooks of other first form students. So if the students had French on Monday, she would take the textbook so I could have French on Tuesday. Of course, she ran into a problem when they had English 3 days a week, but she told them to go do without it. But on the week before I was to go into Ellerslie, after I'd met with the principal and the teachers, who were all eager to take me there, after my family was celebrating because it meant that we'd all be in the same school, the Ministry of Education called to say, no, she can't go there. Them are ready for her. I was 13 years old. I was devastated. And so, me being me, went home and told my grandmother that I get to wear skirt and bodice because I meant my uniform was to change. Please note, the school never told me nothing about changing uniforms. But I needed to do something. Of course, the then teacher, Mr. Hammond Williams, yes, very firm hand, very strict, hustled me back out of my skirt and bodice. Not in an inappropriate way, but he made sure that my family knew it ain't time for her on that yet. And then this happened. I was featured in a newspaper, again through Mona's instigation, under the caption, Music Lights Up Carrie's Life. And there I sat with a guitar. You remember that family I told you about? One of the blessings or curses, depends on your perspective, is our love of music. And my grandfather insisted at age 8 that I should learn to play the piano. It was a tradition in my family that all the girls and boys, if they were so minded, learned to play an instrument. Some would say that my hands destined me for it because I've been complimented on my long fingers from the day I was born. Piano hands. It was my grandfather's way, however, of ensuring that I would have a skill for the future because he felt that being blind, I needed something extra. His wife, Auntie Lane, at age 11, gifted me with the guitar that I was featured in a newspaper holding. The then Minister of Youth Affairs, Keith Simmons, with his morning coffee, I guess, was doing the usual thing that ministers do. You know, read the newspaper so they could find something to do. Nowadays, I'm sure they do social media. That being said, though, he saw the article. And he saw one line in the article that spoke to him. And it was when the reporter asked me what I wished for. When you have a disability, people see the disability first. Isn't that so? You know, when you walk into a place and people see you and they talk to the person with you. Or when people say, oh Lord, she's a good-looking girl though, pity she blind. Or when they say, Cash, she long good, take good care of her, and they're talking to your 6-year-old child. Or to criticize the man that get you pregnant in the first place because he had to have unfaired you. They don't think you unfaired him. I wouldn't know about such things, of course. Remember, cousins, no ring, unmarried. Yeah, there. But no, in all seriousness, it was Keith Simmons reading this line when I was asked what I wished for. It was not, as most people think, for my sight. It was to go to a regular secondary school just for one day, so I could see what it was like. And Keith Simmons said, why should she go for one day? And so he moved every sinew to get me into his alma mater because he knew this is where the proud, unrepentant part comes. That Combermere develops, not developed, well-rounded students. He understood that the school knew what it meant to overcome adversity, to embrace difference, to uplift and carry forward its students, irregardless of where they came from, irregardless of the color of their skin, irregardless of their abilities. He knew that the University of Waterford saw the student and not the other things. That is how I became a Combermerian. That is where I developed, remember this is a part about friendship, not Combermere. That is where I developed some of the best friends anyone could have. Some, not all. The ones that always are there. The ones who are quiet. The ones who I understand and by whom I am understood. Those are the ones that I found at Combermere. Remember the first pillar? God. And by extension, the church. I've been a long-standing member of the Anglican Church of the Resurrection, where I serve as the Sunday school superintendent at the moment. I've had the pleasure and the blessing of working with many young lives. But even more than that, you all see me as the most honorable, as former senator, as president this, as whoever. They, the young people of my generation at the Anglican Church of the Resurrection, just saw me. They just saw me. My mother's close friend, Coral Chase, invited me to sing at a church concert. And after that, I joined a youth chorale. And that youth chorale became one of the best known choirs in Barbados. Not just because we could sing. Bet you didn't know that the lead singer of Promise started in Resurrection, right? Bet you didn't know that. I bet you didn't know that one of the things we were best known for was our choreography. You remember MC Hammer with those big ugly pants? Apart from the big ugly pants, he's most remembered for when he went to gospel and he did that song, Do Not Pass Me By. You remember that one? Well, my youth chorale was known for our choreographic moves. We brought the auditorium, the stadium. I think we even came to Frank Coleman Hall. And we brought them to their feet every time. But why am I talking about them? What do they have to do with my story? I was not expected to stand stiff, not to participate. I was expected to be like every other member of the choir. And that is the blessing of friendship, of knowing that there are people that don't care about your disability, but they care about your talents, your abilities, about pushing you to be more than what others think you could be. I made friends in the community of persons with disabilities. Tonight, my good friend, the special envoy for persons with disabilities, is recovering from illness. Otherwise, she would have been here. Because there are times in this life, in this walk, on this road of disability, when only a person who lives with it understands. I have a good friend who will tell you that almost every day we have conversations. Why our life has to be so? Why do people still not get it? Why does society still limit us? Why do people not recognize that we are humans with feelings, with desires, with abilities, with the right to exist? Why? The sad part about that conversation is I have it with too many of my friends with disabilities. In spite of all the triumphs, I have friends from Barbados with disabilities, Trinidad, my boy, Professor Floyd Morris from Jamaica, Antigua, St. Lucia, Guyana, all over the Caribbean. I have friends in Germany, in Africa, in the UK, in Canada, and in the US with disabilities. These are people that I can call on. These are people that can call on me. Because to be a friend, to have a friend, is to be one. These are the people who understand, who you can call and explain that when the woman with the coffee talked to the person next to you, or the fact that I still cannot go to an ATM machine in Barbados like an adult. 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of checking my bank balance on an ATM machine. Unfortunately, it was in New York. I would love to have a day when I can do that here, wouldn't you? Which brings me to pillar 4. There are only 5 pillars, so don't worry, I ain't gonna bore you for too much longer. The 4th pillar of my life is my insatiable curiosity. Curiosity is the engine of achievement, so said Sir Ken Robinson. Not sure who he was or is, but I know that that is true. It is my curiosity for life, for technology, my curiosity about how things are done, about what is out there. My curiosities are what brought me here, that make me me. Did you know that I have medals in ballroom dancing? I do. You remember I told you my aunt was my dance instructor. She taught me to scan when I was 2 years old. Can't do it now, so don't ask. But when I decided, somebody commented on the fact that I had a curved posture. I couldn't accept that. So I went and found, I think I dragged one of my friends into reading the newspaper, and I found a ballroom dance class. I have medals in quick step, waltz, paso doble, cha-cha. Actually, I did the cha-cha right here on this stage. Can't remember how to do it now though, but it was a lot younger and more limber then. Ended up with my foot on top of somebody's shoulder somewhere about in some, what was it? I think it was a tango we were doing. Yeah, you see he over there telling, he laughing. But yes, my insatiable curiosity about technology. I've worked for the past, all right, that's a bit long. Okay. Rosanna tell you that, all right, yeah, right. I've worked for a few years at the National Disabilities Unit with the Assistive Technology Program for the Blind. And all of it, for the most part, is self-taught because of my curiosity. Because I know that there is more out there beyond these shores. People think that I can do magic with a computer. I have students that say their computers misbehave until it gets in my presence. My good friend Rudy, who we laid to rest last year, used to accuse me of working all beyond the computer. Because he swear this thing didn't working. And as my voice come on the phone, it start working. But it is because I'm curious. It is because I go after knowledge. It is because I do not accept no, that you can't. This isn't for you. My latest pursuit is to learn to play chess. The Barbados Chess Federation joined with the National United Society of the Blind and started teaching us chess. I'm no good at it though. But it's because of my curiosity. I go out there and I seek knowledge. Minister spoke about the fact that I introduce him to people. It's because when I hear about something, I have not to be involved. It's not about me. It's not about center stage. It's not about being, I've been told that I am part of the elite because the blind are the elite. What they don't understand, it's not that we are the elite, it's that we have to talk to make sure that people know we're there. And since I have been blessed with the ability to speak and with a big mouth and a loud voice, I'll do it. And I will do it because I must share my knowledge. My students, my friends, my colleagues will tell you, if you want to know something, come and ask me. I have a friend. She doesn't have any disabilities. I've known her from the day she was born. And she calls me when she wants to know something. Not because she thinks that I know everything, but she knows what I don't know, I'll figure it out. And I'll find it. And I'll come back. That is my curiosity. The inventor, Katherine Johnson, one of the first black women to work at NASA, said, I am as good as anybody, but no better. I was excited at learning something new, always liked something new, but gave credit to everybody who helped. I didn't do anything alone, but try to go to the root of the question and succeeded there. That is my curiosity. And the last pillar, my dedication to serve. few years ago, Barbados had the honor of hosting the president of Rotary International. And she used this quote as part of her speech. In order to live in the society you want, you have to help to build it. Hence, my dedication to serve. The University of the West Indies. In okay, that's aging me again. All right, let's avoid that one. I wanted to go to university when I left Combermere. I was tired, sick and tired, really, to be honest, of being the first. The first to learn Spanish. The first to do French. When I did CXC French, can I tell you, the first time I ever read anything in Braille in French was my CXC French orals. I was tired of being the first. I was tired of the fact that I failed math. I mean, I hated it. But I didn't fail math because I was bad at it. I failed math because I was the first blind student in Barbados to do it. And CXC didn't know what to do with it. And so my math teacher sat with me for 2 years and prepared me for the math exam. I was on the course for grade 1. And I didn't get it because the paper that I was presented with didn't have any of the questions that I was prepared to do, because blind people can't draw graphs. Blind people cannot calculate geometry in their head. Blind people don't know how to do linear programming. So therefore, a parallelogram, I actually remember that word. They wouldn't know how to do it. My math teacher will tell you I did them extremely well. But none of them were on my paper because they took them out. So I failed math. So I was sick and tired of being told, we never do this yet. We don't know what to do. I was sick of it. The government of the day awarded me the National Development Scholarship. I was so ready to get out of Barbados. I couldn't wait to go to University of Buffalo or University of Stony Brook. I didn't care where I went so long as I wasn't going to be the first. But you remember my first pillar? Yeah. He has a habit of smiling when I say things like that. He says, is that what you think? I stayed at home for 2 years because I didn't want to do it. I am proud to be the first totally blind student to graduate from the KFL campus because the late Woody Blackman, former registrar of the University of the West Indies, sat me down one day and told me, you're wasting your time. Stop looking outside of Barbados and go to the perfectly good university that's here. They will make sure you succeed. They did. They paid for students to read for me. They bought a machine. They made sure my exams were done in Braille. One day turned up and the exam hadn't been brailled. And you know what? One of the lecturers said, no problem, I'll read it. And they read and recorded it. And another lecturer said, no problem, I'll invigilate for her. I remember former Minister of Education, Anthony Woods, at the time. He was one of my lecturers in economics. I sat in a separate room, but he came and made sure that I had everything I needed. University of the West Indies made sure. Dr. Christina Barrow, Professor Farley Brathwaite, all of them made sure even the secretary to the principal, actually, she was the secretary to the dean of the Faculty of Humanities at the time. Oh, wait, she was my aunt. She had no choice. But all of them made sure. But how did that resonate with a dedication to service? When so many people support you and are there for you, when you recognize that other persons who live with disabilities like you aren't given the opportunities, you have to serve. I became a member of Barnot, a member of the National United Society of the Blind. 2 years after that, I became a staff member at the Barbados Council for the Disabled, where I formed more friendships that continue to be part of my network, my support system. All of them are part of the tapestry of my life because I was willing to serve. And speaking of serving, one day, January 2008, I was sitting at my desk at the Barbados Council for the Disabled. I wasn't drinking water, but I was certainly minding my own business. And the phone rang. Good morning, Barbados Council for the Disabled, Carrie-Ann Eiffel speaking. How can I help you? Good morning, said a voice, a very commanding sounding voice. This is David Thompson. I thought to myself, David Thompson, that name's so far. Oh! Good morning, sir. He'd just been appointed as the Prime Minister, elected as the Prime Minister of Barbados. And he said, I don't know your politics, Carrie-Ann. But I was fast to explain that I was brought up in a household of Democratic Labour Party. I had my Auntie Maisie, my Uncle Warwick Franklin. I didn't want to get excommunicated, so, you know. He said, but I want to invite you to sit in the Senate. I said, who, me? I couldn't understand what he was thinking. Because some years before, somebody asked me if I was interested in being in politics, and I said, you've got to be drinking. I like to sleep. But when the call is given, we must answer. When you've been given the tools and the foundation and the material to build, you have to build. And so whether I didn't want it or not, I accepted it. I was standing at then Government House, being sworn in. And I was doing what we blind people do real good. I did listening in on people's conversation. And I overheard another person that has become a good friend and travel buddy and shoppist saying to somebody else, something, something, something. I ain't sure how she in. Something, something, something. Deputy President. I was like, huh, who? Nah, you ain't talking about me. And then this person drifted over by me. And I'm like, who you? It was the Clerk of Parliament, Pedro Eastman. Another person with extremely great fashion sense. But more importantly, with a dedication to his job, to serve. He was my travel buddy on many, many, many trips. But more importantly than any of those things, he also, along with his staff at the Parliament, made sure that what I needed was supplied. They did not see disability. They saw the Prime Minister put you there, so you had to get through with the work. And they made sure that I could. Even if it was going down to the office to read for me, to buy the equipment I needed, for making sure that I could walk around the Parliament safely. To this day, if I walk through the doors of Parliament, they will tell you, don't tell the Prime Minister. But the staff at Parliament will leave her out and make sure that I get seated first. But don't tell the Prime Minister I said that. The truth is, It's not because they feel sorry for me. It's not because of any of those things. It's because they recognize that I have a spirit to serve. Which brings me to another part of my life. Service above self. The Rotary Club of Barbados South invited me to be an honorary Rotarian. They also invited me before that to talk to their club about disability. And they invited me to become a member of the club. The members of the Rotary Club of Barbados South love, when I am sergeant at arms. Why? Because they bring in lots of money. No, it's because they too don't see disability. They see someone who is willing to serve. They call me, they involve me. Sometimes we as persons with disabilities sit in places and people ignore you. That ever happened to you? Sometimes it's your own family. Sometimes it's people that used to be your friends, your co-workers. They sit you in a corner like a plant. You know how you feed and water plants? I love plants. But they treat us like that. But the members of the Rotary Club of Barbados South, they do not see that. They see another willing pair of hands and a brain and a wit and an ability to withdraw money from people's pockets. I serve, if you ever had the misfortune of reading my CV, you'll see that I serve on many boards, in many organizations. I am currently President of the Caribbean Council for the Blind, Vice Chair of the Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum, Public Relations Officer of the National United Society of the Blind, Vice President of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, because even when I left the staff, they didn't want to let me go. So they brought me back on the board. I serve on international councils and panels. I speak at many events and activities. When my bishop wanted to have a conversation on diversity, he called on me. Not because I'm the only person with a disability in the church, probably because I'm one of the noisiest, I don't know. But they all make sure that I am a part. Which brings me to the conclusion. There is no greater disability in society than the inability to see a person as more. Robert M. Hensel said that. Our society needs to provide an enabling environment. That is what I've had. That is what my pillars have given to me. The Anthony N. Sabga Award, the Order of the Freedom of Barbados, are all accolades that have been bestowed on me because my society provides an enabling environment that recognizes service, that recognizes determination. I've been told I'm stubborn, I'm arrogant, that I am a lot of things. My stubbornness, my seeming arrogance, all of those things come from one place. They come from the recognition that I have that within me to give. We with disabilities suffer from the low expectations of many. The ones that assume that somebody dressed me. Yes, my mother bought this dress. Yes, my aunt went with me the day that I pick out these shoes. You ever notice that I love high heels? Even Dame Sandra admires my heels. Janelle says she'll never do it. But you know what? It is because I've been provided with an enabling environment. I've been afforded the opportunity for a stellar education. Go look me up. I was recently told I'm one of the easiest people to interview because there's so much information. Go find out what are the accolades, what are the achievements, what are the academics. They're paper. They're paper. They're paper I'm proud of. But the most important part is because society must provide an opportunity. When I decided to go to Urdeston to do a course in professional counseling, there was no place on the application for disability, and I didn't see any need for it. I was going to counsel. I wasn't going to drive the taxi. Being blind had nothing to do with them. I said, when I walk in the room, they'll figure it out. And they did. I graduated most outstanding student in my second time at Urdeston, pursuing a postgraduate diploma in special education because of my insatiable curiosity. Inclusion is key. A lot of us think that inclusion and integration are interchangeable. They are not. Rosanna often pinches a phrase I shared with her. I said, integration is inviting me to the party. You know, where you stick me in the corner like the plant and water and feed me, stick fish cakes in my mouth. I love fish cakes, but hey. That's integration, because I'm actually there. I'm not shut up elsewhere. But inclusion is when you clear the dance floor and invite me to dance. That is inclusion. Inclusion is when you provide persons with disabilities the opportunity to be a part and to expect that they will give the same service as any other. I have two more things to say. This is to my friends, my colleagues with disabilities. Tell your story. Tell your story. You may not be delivering next year's This Is My Story. You may not be interviewed in the newspapers, but you have opportunities. Tell your story. You are more than your disability. Tell society. Let them know. Speak out about it. Share it. Teach the children in the household that just because you are blind, just because you're in a wheelchair, you are no less. On my chest, I am wearing a corsage. Oh, and for my blind friends, I'm wearing a lilac evening gown. Looks pretty good. It's 15 years old, but don't tell nobody. But I'm also wearing my Rotary pin. I'm wearing my Order of the Freedom of Barbados. Some may say, but you ain't got on nothing that says disability. I don't need to. My disability is a badge of honor, which I wear every day, every single day of my life. And I will wear it with pride because my disability was no accident. It was not a mistake. It was not a misfortune. It wasn't a curse. It wasn't because, believe it or not, people believe this, that if your parents did, parent things during Lent, that you'd be born with a disability. So you know not to do this evening, right? Because Lent doesn't end till Good Friday, which is the 17th of April, right? People actually believe that, but none of those things are true. So my disability is no curse, and neither is yours. So tell your story. And lastly, I am honored as I look around this audience, and yes, I look around. I see people who I've interacted with. And in every day, you give me strength. You give me the ability. My students who call and ask me how to calculate future values in Excel. I had to do that this morning. I hate math. Remember me telling you that? But guess what? He knows how to do it now. Or, it pains me. You know that little boy, you know, the one that was on the front page of the newspaper last year, with his hair so nicely plait up. You know, that cute little boy over there? That hurt my heart when he told me he wanted to go to Harrison College. He gives me strength. You see that attorney over there? You see the other lovely young ladies? You see Miss Alinda Brathwaite, Mr. Granville Carter, Miss Michelle Thompson, and all the other people who are visually impaired? You see Antoinette back there? You see Rosanna and Emily and John Hollingsworth and Sharon Codrington Holder. You see all of those people? You see Sonia Welch, Grace Franklin, Sean Franklin. You see Cheryl Eiffel. You see all of those people? I am the total of all of your investment. Because you give me the enabling society. You give me the inclusion, and you allow me to tell my story. And so, this is my story, and this is my song. I'll praise my Savior all my life long. No problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, you would have sat and you would have heard the story. At this time, persons can feel any question you may have.
The only one I ain't answering is how much I weigh.
And the ushers will bring the mic to you. Just raise your hand and the ushers will bring the mic to you. It appears as though that story was so satisfying that persons.
Well, I told them they couldn't
We
ask
have
about my
one.
weight, so you see, that ended the conversation.
As PS Emeritus. Well,
No, no, please. Thank you very much. It's just touching to be here, honestly. But I have a question for dear Carrie Ann, the most honorable. I never learned how to crochet. How did you learn how to crochet?
You remember that thing about my insatiable curiosity? I love how crochet material feels. You'll see blind people touching things. I've been told I got gypsy fingers, malicious hands. When a blind people won't keep one a hand to one self. I loved how crochet felt, the texture. And Auntie Lane tried to teach me to crochet, but it didn't work. You remember I said, don't ever tell me no. She said she didn't think that. She thought that because I was blind, I might not be able to learn to crochet. A few years later, I was reading the back of a magazine, and it had a sale on books in Braille on crochet. So my logic is, if they have Braille crochet books, ergo, blind people can crochet. In other words, there's no limitation on what you can do. So you can still learn to crochet. Look me up. I got enough needles. I'll help you. Tonight is,
Questions?
any more questions?
Good night, Carrie Ann. This is Sheila.
Oh dear, another cousin.
Did you actually play the piano? Did you learn to play, that you could play tunes and all that?
I play a mean G's You Joy of Man's Erin. Thank you very much.
Okay. That is many degrees above my playing. Good night.
One more.
Carrie,
Yes,
a
please.
pleasure knowing you. It's a pleasure listening to you. On several occasions in your presentation, you suggested that you didn't want to be known as first. And I know that you're a student of psychology. Can you go a little bit into that concern? Why you didn't want to be known as first?
For several reasons. One of them, the first carries a burden. You know, there's a quote that says, "Go where there's no path and blaze the trail." You know what blazing the trail? You know how to blaze a trail? You have to light fires. I was tired of having to light the fires. Unfortunately, I'm pretty hot, I've been told, so I ain't got no choice. No, in all seriousness though, in addition to that, being the first meant that you have to overcome all of the barriers that are put in your way because nobody else knows how to do it. I had to teach my Spanish teacher how to teach me Spanish. He did a great job. I had to teach my math teacher. I had to give her the tools. I had to do a lot of things. I had to help my dance instructor figure out how to teach me the moves. I had to explain to others how to craft an exam so I could take an online exam. So I was tired of always having to do that. I also, and this is something a lot of people don't know about me, I call myself party of one. Because no matter where I go, no matter what I do, I'm always alone. And I'm always alone because my disability makes me different to my peer group, to my colleagues, to whoever. And I didn't want, when I was younger, to stand out. I didn't want to be different. I just wanted to be the alto in the second line in the chorale. I just wanted to be the girl in the class doing sociology. I just wanted to be the person in the gym that was working out on the treadmill to shift some of that macaroni pie. I just wanted to be that person. You know how many people I run into on a daily basis that tell me they used to see me in Surfside or World Gym or whatever, and all of those things? Do you know how many people tell my trainer that they think I feel him up? Do you know? And it's because I'm always, somehow, the first. So now, I just take it in my stride. I'm the first totally blind Rotarian. I'm the first person to have achieved medals in ballroom dancing. I'm the first person who's blind to do this, that, and the other, and guess what? I guess I'll have to stick me in the first.
One more.
Hello, Carrie.
Hello.
This is Harriet. I want to know if there's anything that you fear, any apprehensions that you have. You seem to be very bold and everything. What can you give us a secret? Not the weight, but the
Snakes.
secret of what is it that would make you think twice or be hesitant to do something? What is it?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Everything. I'm terrified of flying to a certain extent. Went to New York 2 weeks ago, going to Germany next week, went to New York, went to Malaysia, went to South Africa, went to Kenya, went to Uganda, went to Qatar, and blah, 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 blah. But I'm afraid to fly. I'm afraid of heights. But when I was at Combamere, I insisted on sitting on the top tier of the stadium stands. I'm afraid of jumping off things into nowhere, but I jump off a boat to learn to swim. My reason for sharing that isn't for you to go, wow. It is for you to know that having fear is a part of living. Having fear is a part of being a person. But do not let your fear put you in a corner. And that's what I don't do.
Appears there is no further questions at this time. The Most Honorable Carrie-Anne will wish to present one of her literary work to some individuals and institutions.
This year I became a published author. And why did I do that? I did it for several reasons. One of them is because my mother told me it was time. But the other one is because I wanted to share some of the small things that get me up every day and help me to overcome life's challenges. Through the Anthony N. Sabga Award, I realized that I've made a difference in so many different places. I serve as the current chair of the National Steering Committee of the Global Environmental Fund Small Grants Project Barbados. I knew nothing about no green economy nor nothing like that. But I wanted to share with the world 10 lessons I learned to overcome challenges. And so, I authored the book with the support of my speaker coach, Michelangelo Caruso. He is a Rotarian, not from Barbados though. And this evening, I want to present a few books. Now, don't get vexed if your name ain't part of this list. Can't invite everybody up here. But I have 6 to present on stage and a few others that you can come to the table and I will present them to you. The first is to the Honorable Kirk Humphrey. Okay, now you're going to have 3 hands. All right, we'll figure this one out. Mrs. Patricia Padmore Blackman, President of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, and a woman for whom I have a lot of respect. And as she's accompanied by Rosanna Tudor, no, I didn't see you, I will present to her as well. Yeah. I didn't plan to be up here this long. I figured I would have bored you all about 10 minutes and walked down. But remember, I love to talk, so I forgot. Don't worry. Unfortunately, it is not yet in Braille, but I made sure and autographed it in Braille. Everyone. Well, everyone I given out tonight, that is. Rosanna. Those who purchase the book and want to have, and don't ruin the makeup, love. And, and wants to have an accessible copy, get in touch. The director of the National Disabilities Unit, Mr. John Hollingsworth. Now, I have to say, Mr. Hollingsworth was out for a while, and we're really happy to have him back. In his time of convalescence, we had the guidance of Assistant Director Wayne Nurse, our saxophonist, but Mr. Hollingsworth? Now, unfortunately for poor Wayne, Mr. Hollingsworth came back to work last week. But Wayne has been a part of my life for a long, long time. So he gets his copy too, but not on the stage tonight. Can't keep me here no longer. I'm the woman between you and your food. For 10 years, I served in the upper chamber of the House of Barbados, Parliament. And one young man had the misfortune of being closest to me in age. So every debate, every event, every activity, he was by my side. So much so that my family started having interesting thoughts. However, I would like to present to Senator Andre Worrell, member of the Democratic Labour Party, a copy. Senator Worrell. If you must. You're welcome. Yeah. Tonight, I want to honor and recognize my dear friend, Special Envoy Rosalind Hurley. Unfortunately, she's not with us. So her friend and mine, the energetic, enthusiastic, wonderful Alinda Brathwaite, will receive on her behalf. Thank you for listening as I shared my story. God bless, and remember, all of us have a story to tell, so tell your story.
Yes. We delay you a little longer. We have a presentation to make, and we invite him whom you had a long and distinguished friendship with, the Assistant Director of the National Disabilities Unit, Mr. Nurse, to make this presentation.
To Kerry, for your sterling service and dedication to mankind in general, and especially to those with disabilities, we present you with this bouquet of flowers.
Thank you, Mr. Nurse. Thank you, Most Honorable Sisterin. It is said gratitude is an attitude, and at this time I wish to invite Mrs. Sharon Codgerton Holder to deliver a vote of thanks. Mrs. Holder.
The Honorable Kirk Humphrey, MP, Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, Mr. Edmund Hinkson, SC, MP, Senators Boyce and Worrell. It is my pleasure to express thanks and appreciation for making this evening the success that it was. Thanks to Mr. Nurse, the Assistant Director, for the playing and presentation of the national anthem, Mrs. Dion Watson for invoking God's presence, Mr. John Hollingsworth, the Director of the National Disabilities Unit, for his welcome, the Honorable Edmund Hinkson, again, for his opening remarks, Minister Humphrey for addressing us this evening, Mrs. Tudor for her introduction of our speaker, the Most Honorable Carrie-Ann Eiffel. Thank you, Ms. Eiffel, for sharing your story, one of faith, family, and friendships. Also, I wish to thank Mr. Jehu Wilshire, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, the staff of the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, staff of the Media Resource Department, members of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, members of the Community of Persons with Disabilities, the management and staff of the Frank Collymore Hall, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express my deepest thanks. And to you, the audience, for your questions, which I know you would have received indelible answers, and I know that going forward, we and you will pave the way for persons living with disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.